Are you a firefighter who strives to maintain peak performance while combating burnout and stress? Are you seeking practical strategies and insights to effectively manage the significant challenges that come with the demanding nature of our profession? Do you believe in the importance of prioritizing wellness to combat firefighter fatigue and prevent physical and mental exhaustion? If you're nodding your head in agreement, then you're about to discover a podcast tailored specifically to your needs. Welcome to Priority Traffic Podcast, the ultimate resource for firefighters like you who are dedicated to thriving in the face of adversity and optimizing their overall well-being. Join us as we dive deep into the realm of firefighter resilience, support, and growth. Are you ready to unlock the secrets to maintaining peak performance while safeguarding your mental and physical health? Then hit that play button and get ready to gain valuable insights from experienced firefighters, health experts, and mindset coaches. Whether you're seeking strategies to prevent burnout, tips on building resilience, or methods to enhance recovery and self-care, this podcast is here to provide you with the tools you need to navigate the unique challenges of the firefighter profession. If you're ready to supercharge your performance, protect your overall well-being, and continue serving your community at your absolute best, join us here at Priority Traffic Podcast. It's time to prioritize your wellness, conquer burnout, and build a fulfilling and sustainable career. Are you up for the challenge? Welcome back to Priority Traffic Podcast. My name's Chris, and today I have an exciting guest, Lee Throckmorton. Lee, how you doing today?
Chris, it's great to talk to you again.
Good to have you back. So you and I actually met out in Norfolk Fire at an O2X workshop, and I do recall when we met, you were one of the leaders of Norfolk at the time, and you don't always see leaders that are so enthusiastic about fitness and firefighter wellness, and that's one thing I do remember when we first met, and I was pretty excited when I don't remember exactly how we found each other on Instagram, but when we reconnected, once I realized who I was speaking with, I was pretty excited to have you on the show. So welcome to the show, sir.
Well, the excitement is likewise for me as well, and I appreciate that compliment about when we met. I appreciate that because I take the fitness side of things and the leadership side of things very seriously. So having you notice those two things is an extreme compliment.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to miss when you're coming from a Midwest department, or I've been to multiple departments, and you don't always see the brass pushing for fitness. Maybe one or two, but I believe you were a captain at the time, correct?
Lieutenant, which still first line supervisor for there, and it being an officer does give you a little bit more of a voice, which I noticed. Once I got promoted, it gave me a little more of a voice, and I could kind of push the fitness side of things a little more. But yes, we do have a small faction of folks that's their niche and that's their priority, and they're continuing to push that in my absence.
Good. Well, let's dig right in, if you don't mind. Give the audience a little bit of a rundown on your prior service history. It's pretty extensive, from fire, law enforcement. You have some ocean surf rescue stuff that I'm really curious about, and then your experience with strength and conditioning. So pick it up wherever you want to. And
well, I retired about a year and a week now, I think, is when my official retirement was. And that was after a 30-year career in public safety, which started on a pretty busy, very well-traveled beach in Southeast Virginia as a lifeguard. And I think that turned out to probably be, no disrespect to the fire service, that was the best job I ever had. I miss it. And if this was California or Florida, they would have pried me from an office, my cold dead hands, from a pickup truck or an SUV on a beach down here in Virginia, because that was my great best job. Cut my teeth in leadership, cut my teeth in strength conditioning, and cut my teeth in public safety there. Worked my way up the ranks for about 22 seasons. And, it was seasonal work. So in the winter times, we obviously weren't out there. It's not as chilly as where you are, but it's not beachfront weather in the winter time. And as we, first 4 or 5 years I was in college, and as college was starting to wrap up, a handful of us in my cohort were looking around trying to figure out how we were able to stay working at the beach because we just enjoyed it so much. And the two choices, the forks in the road, were either be a school teacher or in the fire service. And I didn't really have that much interest in being a school teacher. Um, my mom was a school teacher, and I saw the stressful environment that she would have. But the obviously being in public safety, doing some EMS, went through paramedic school while I was now lifeguards. It just seemed like a pretty good fit for us to. Being a few of my colleagues to apply to some fire departments in the area, and we were lucky enough to get picked up in a department, Norfolk, about 30 minutes away from where I live. And I was there working in concert with the lifeguard service for 22 out of my 26 years
Oh, wow.
in Norfolk. Yeah, and I retired as an officer in again about a year ago. I had some experience with hazmat, some heavy tech rescue. Also, I did 3 years in the fire marshal's office, which I'm not familiar with how your department does that. And every department's a little bit different, but
Sure.
they had a promotional exam, and they plucked 2 or 3 people off that promotional exam, and they would send you to the police academy. So you go through a full police academy. They'd bring you out. You do your field training like you would any patrol officer. So we got trained up to right when they would put you in a patrol car and let you move through the city on
Okay.
your own, and then we would come back to the office and do investigations, bomb, environmental crimes, that sort of stuff. So I got a good 3 years of badge and a gun work and understanding the law enforcement side of things. Also, during my career, occasionally, every 5 years or so, the city's SOT or their SWAT team would bandy about the idea about embedding firefighter paramedics with the SWAT team. And we have a lot of cities in our area that do that. They'll have fire
Okay.
department that team up. And it never came to fruition, but a lot of us were able to raise our hands and get some good training with the SWAT teams, or they would have a third party come in and give us some training as well. And the reason I bring those things up is it, for that 30 years, I had a diverse professional experience. And when I started to think of it in a public safety way, or in a strength and conditioning way, it really kind of exposed me to the different challenges, the different mindsets of all four of those specific occupations, and it really interested me to look and see what the demands for each one of those were. Um, Educationally, over the course of that time, I was getting a more robust resume as far as strength and conditioning goes. I worked for a handful of gyms. CrossFit, we were early adopters of CrossFit in this area. We have a
Cool.
pretty big military footprint here.
Yeah.
It's specifically a special operations footprint in the area.
Right.
And so we were early adopters of CrossFit. And I think that's where, now, granted, that's a polarizing subject nowadays, especially with executive staffs in the fire department. They hear CrossFit and they get a little sweaty palms.
Sure.
But that was kind of where I cut my teeth in strength and conditioning. But over time, I recognized that there was some more nuance than just the functional fitness space, and kind of branched out and got some more education and experience. Ended up opening my own gym for a couple years. Being a gym owner wasn't really for me. I enjoy the coaching, I enjoy the camaraderie, I enjoy working out, but owning a gym is a whole different bag. So I was able to move away from that, and now my wife, she runs her gym with all my equipment that I had from my gym, so it worked out for everybody involved, and
Right.
that's kind of led me to where I am now, to where I still am in the tactical space as far as either working with law enforcement or fire departments with Kaizen Groundworks, trying to catch people early and prepare them for good habits moving through their career and whatever that's going to be in the strength conditioning field. So that's, I'm currently working with a few SWAT candidates. I have worked with, I had a cohort of fire department candidates that are currently in the academy setting right now, doing thriving, which makes me very happy as a coach. And we're working on getting our website to cast a wide net to anybody that needs help with strength and conditioning in the tactical sphere.
That's excellent. The strength and conditioning piece is something that I grew up with as a personal trainer before the fire service. So that to me that really strikes home. But before we get too far, I want to step back a little bit. And you mentioned the demands of each of the four professions. What would you say varies from obviously the beach to fire investigation to LEO to fire? Like, I know the mindset has to be a little different, but from your perspective, what would you say stood out?
Well, from my experience, if we get into the weeds of it, obviously in the lifeguarding realm, it's very, very preventative. So, not that the other aspects of public safety aren't preventative. You have code enforcement, you have people going out, you have officers pulling people over, preemptively if they see something that's that leads them to feel that they need to do that. But in the lifeguard side, it's very, very preventative, and it's trying to avoid even having to get in the water and rescue somebody. But on the conditioning side of it, it's you go from a sitting and not doing anything to a dead sprint. Getting in the water. You have to have the stamina to fight whatever the water conditions are, and then you get to somebody, and then you have to have the strength and stamina to kind of either calm the situation down and get them on some sort of flotation device to get them back in. And this can happen multiple times. Specifically with the lifeguards, speed does play a bit of a role. So more so switching into the fire department. The fire department is you're working in a worst environment imaginable inside of a structure fire. It's not not a tenable environment at all. You are speed isn't really an issue. There's not a whole lot of running, not a whole lot of sprinting. And that has a lot to do with your PPE. You're not really in the best position to be doing a whole lot of sprinting from the truck to the second floor of a residence.
Right.
You're under load. You're under an axial load from the SCBA. You're under the demands of the tank. You're breathing on air, and you're moving objects or your body or tools or other people under a high heart rate. But again, speed and the water isn't really an issue compared to the lifeguard service.
Gotcha.
As far as police goes, it's the police almost have as much of a demand as the lifeguards, because you think about it, the officer is in a car, they're sitting like a lifeguard would be in a lifeguard stand. Sure. The police officer's sitting for a long period of time, and then next thing you know, they're out of the car and they're in a foot pursuit. And just like running down the beach to get to an individual that may be in the water or drowning, they're running as fast as they can. But when they get to the perpetrator or the suspect or whoever they're trying to apprehend, they need to have the strength, stamina, and ability to think clearly to make that arrest safely for everybody involved. And that's kind of where there's a bit of a parallel. And as far as SWAT goes, SWAT's moving at above body weight. Depending on what they're doing, they're holding tight for a little bit, and then next thing you know, they're moving from point A to point B.
Sure.
You're having to pay very, very close attention to your surroundings, have great situational awareness, and you're probably going to be working at a high heart rate. And there's probably going to be less speed involved with the SWAT, because there's, slow is smooth, smooth is fast in that environment, as you know. But they're going to be above body weight, and they're going to be, moving up stairwells, moving from point A to point B. So there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences in those demands. But it's nice to have a little bit of experience in each one of those, so I kind of know how it feels, and I kind of know where the mindset is, and hopefully it's easy for me to identify in an athlete that comes to me and says, I want to do X. Mm-hmm. I can kind of see where they may have some holes in their game that we can adjust depending on what that is that they want to do.
Yeah, you definitely have a unique combination of background when it comes to strength conditioning and experience in general. What would you say is something unique that allows you personally to bring to Kaizen Groundworks?
I think it's just feeling and understanding. I have a special place in my heart for coaches that have done the sport, and now they're coaching. I think that in the tactical space, there's a lot of people that have the practical experience. They may have had a long, diverse career, or a singular career. They may have been police their whole life, and they decide when they get out that they're going to tackle the strength and conditioning aspect of it, maybe not having as much education as a more sophisticated coach would. Sure. And I think having a combination of both, having a robust resume and robust experience that I was pulling in concert with the practical experience of working within the public safety space is unique to myself and our team that's working with these athletes.
Sure. So when it comes to your personal fitness coming into all of these careers, how did you develop the necessity before you even so prior to joining the beach rescue stuff, were you fit? And
no.
Did that carry on into your career? Or how did that come about for you?
No. And so I noticed pretty early on, without education and context, that if I was going to be in the public safety space, I recognized pretty quickly that your physical abilities were going to be directly related to the outcome of whatever service you're going to provide. So it didn't take me long to see that the slower lifeguards, those that may not have been as comfortable in the water, may not have been as fast, there was a direct correlation between positive outcomes in the call for service or in their physical abilities. So that's kind of what guided me a little bit, and also having a job that your uniform was a pair of shorts and flip flops. You don't want to you don't want to look like a soup sandwich out there on the beach if you can help it. So that was that was a motivator as well. And when you're 19 years old, of course, that's kind of be where your goal was. And Chris, this is 1993, right? And strength conditioning, I think, has gotten so much more sophisticated in the last 30 years. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think that I was just kind of figuring it out as I went, made a lot of wrong turns, and probably wasted a little bit of time. And that's what motivates me to do what I'm doing now, to kind of catch people early and maybe steer them in a direction so they don't make as many wrong turns as I did early in my career.
Sure. Do you mind telling us who you prefer or tend to serve with Kaizen Groundworks? Who's your target?
Well, I think that I'd like to do all, like I said, cast a wide net to all, sure, wildland, hot shots, law enforcement going into SWAT, fire candidates. Now, I mean, you can look at my professional resume and you can say that I probably understand the fire service side of it better than anything.
Sure.
But I would like to catch as many people as I can, because I think that we can help a great number of folks. And I think between I've got a cadre of people that I can lean on that have more SWAT experience than I do. They
Sure.
have a longer law enforcement career than I do. And so if I need some perspective that I may not have, I can call on them as well. So, as many people as we can get, I think, in as wide a wider array as professions that will allow.
I really hope you can keep that net big and catch these people early, because that, from my experience and what I've started to learn, is we need to catch as many people day one and get that mindset even prior to the academy. If they want to go to an academy, let's go to an academy in shape. Let's show up ready to go. So, best of luck to getting all of those people. So I think you're going to definitely have a positive impact on everybody. One question I do have is, do you have a special strategy or technique that you implement that would be typical of Kaizen Groundworks?
Well, and it's the classic strength and conditioning answer is it depends.
Sure.
That's every sports scientist that's the answer that you'll get from a handful of folks is it depends. It depends on the athlete. It depends on what it is that they want to do. And the thing that I've noticed is that the big difference between the people that I want to serve, it's usually pretty obvious where they need some help.
Sure.
They're either most people are either going to go one way or the other. They're either going to be strength biased or they're going to be endurance biased. And we'll find out where the holes are and try to bring them closer to the middle. And where it depends is, are they going into law enforcement? Well, obviously speed and power is going to be a little more important. Firefighting, my opinion, hot take is, aerobic capacity and the cardiac output side of things are going to be where a firefighter needs to spend a lot of their time. So like I said, it depends on what the needs are, and then you just kind of turn the knobs on the individuals. And I like to provide information too, and I think that's a big thing about getting people early. If you get them early in their career and you give them the why, because a lot of people don't. They have aspirational goals, but they don't know how to practically get there.
Right.
They see there's so much noise in the fitness space that is overwhelming for people that don't have the context to understand what those needs are. And I've seen a lot of people in a lot of different positions that they look great in the uniform,
Sure.
but when the what hits the what, it's obvious that it's show muscles and not go muscles. So just got to get people to understand what the actual requirements of the job are, and help them fill in those holes, and then it's from there they can just take those habits and run with it.
Perfect. So on the fire side of things, do you mind if you just give us an idea of some of the typical demands from the fire service? I know you and I are both familiar with them, but just for the audience and from your perspective, what are the high-end demands that firefighters are going to face, and maybe a way to start tackling those fitness-wise?
Well, I look at it on a continuum. You take a continuum of a fire service day. On one side you have the day where it's a holiday. Maybe you go to the station. It's there's football. Everybody, there's no training for today. It's we're gonna sit and we're gonna hang out. We don't have any major calls. You make it through your 24 and you go home, and you didn't really get taxed any more than if you worked out at the station. I put that on one end of the spectrum, and I didn't have very many days like that, but that is on one side of the continuum.
Sure.
In the middle of that continuum is kind of where I'm going to place the EMS side of things, right? So the the biggest demands on the EMS side is, in my experience, getting somebody from point A to point B. Our population is getting more obese. We're having patients that are heavier, and we have to get them from point A to point B. Usually they're on the third floor in the smallest bedroom, and we have to get them from there to a medic unit. And that's usually on EMS calls where the biggest strain is going to be. It's going to be moving that patient. And I used to get some pushback from folks when I would, articulate that, the firefighters for EMS really need to train how to pick things up.
Yeah.
But the pushback would always be, well, listen, you're going to have a minimum of 6 people, and we have 113 people on shift, so we can throw as many people as we want to get person A to place B. But where that falls apart, and I'm sure you've done it 1,000 times, is when you get to that narrow stairwell or you get to the narrow hallway, and it's just 2. There's no room for anybody. You can't throw anybody else at it. So you have to have some of that requisite strength there. And I think that falls right in the middle of that continuum for me. And then you go to the other side of it. I don't know how much high rise you guys have in your municipality. Yeah. So, we have a pretty robust downtown area. To me, I think the high rise structure fire is going to be the other end of that spectrum. And that's full gear. You're making, 7, 8, 9 flights, and then you're going to work. And to me, that seems like the biggest task, and all the other calls fall somewhere in there. But, I had alluded to the aerobic capacity and cardiac output side of things earlier, and how I feel that that's important. And I get some bristles from the guys that are constantly hitting the weights, and they're as strong as they can possibly be. But firefighting is all based on air demand, and you have a tank, and you have a finite amount of air in that tank, and when that's done, you're done, or your team's done. So that's kind of why I focus on somebody having as much aerobic capacity, pushing as far to the right on that graph, your aerobic capacity and lactic threshold type stuff, not to get too deep into the weeds, but pushing that as far to the right until you start to lose the requisite strength you need to tackle that EMS call with that heavy patient. So that's kind of where, in the fire side of it, that's kind of where I'm looking, is to really try to bias as much of that, get your body adapted to as much cardiac output, as much oxygenated blood as you can move around your body, raise that ceiling as high as possible, and eventually that training is going to affect your strength and power. And when it gets to that point, then that's when you have to say, okay, well, we need to, I need to kind of move myself back to the middle by, keeping that balance of that strength work. So, and again, all of firefighting, for the most part, other than those EMS calls we talked about, everything's pretty submaximal on the strength side. So you're just doing repetitive submaximal strength endeavors at a high heart rate. And I think that having the biggest base of aerobic capacity, the most cardiac output that you can get your cardiovascular system genetically to provide you, is going to be where I like to aim people. And that seems to be where I get a lot of folks. I get a lot of strong people in the tactical space, but the conditioning can lack. And I've recently worked with a group of law enforcement officers that are going to SWAT school, and they came in, and on day one, we said, "Hey, we're gonna do some deadlift today." And these guys, within 10 minutes of their warm up, were picking up twice their body weight. Right. So immediately I say, okay, you don't need to be any strong. You guys are strong enough. The second I put them on an air bike or an echo bike, they're at 95% of their max heart rate in 2 minutes. So we see that where we have to work, and that's usually where with most athletes I can they're either going to be weak as a kitten, and we got to work on that strength, or they're going to have some cardiorespiratory issues that we need to kind of button up, and we kind of tackle it from there. And then there's some people that are just they need a little bit of both, and you just kind of bring them closer to that middle point in that continuum.
Yeah. So real quick, you mentioned submaximal work again. Do you mind explaining how we would find a max, and for those who are not familiar with max and submax work, and then maybe explain what a submaximal load would look like?
So in my mind, absolute strength and your maximal strength work would be as much as you can pick up. Let's say whatever you can pick up one time, the most amount of weight that you can pick up at any given time.
Right. Barring injury.
Yes. The submaximal is going to be way lighter than that. All right. And I mean, that could be anything less than what your training and genetics allow you to pick up.
Sure.
Or squat or press or bench, but you're going to do those at a lighter weight, but repetitively. So for example, pulling a charged hose line, or pulling ceilings, or that sort of stuff. Those are going to be just general overhaul is going to be just submaximal, and you're probably going to be at a high heart rate because you're in a humid, hot environment, and you're doing that work repetitively over the course of the overhaul, two or three times. And if you're on air, it's a whole nother aspect of things as well. So that's in my mind the difference between the two.
And you always have to take in that consideration is how many people do you have staffed, right? Like you might have been that attack crew, and now you're overhauling your own fire. You might have had a minute or two to catch your breath, but you don't have people to recycle. So that could be a long episode for you.
I always felt like the calls that we were first due, in the structure fire, we were, I don't ever remember not being 100% involved in the overhaul until It's over with. And so, you're there first, you're knocking the fire down, you're doing the lion's share of the work, and then you're pretty much there until the very end. So, you're probably going to do the most work. Yeah. And, getting back to that, biasing of aerobic capacity and increased lactic threshold and all that stuff. In between tanks, we've all seen the firefighters that can, they switch their tank out, they get a cup of water. If their department mandates that they get a vital check, get their vital check, yeah, and they're ready to go. And then you have ones that, they've worked, in their defense, they've worked hard for that 20 minutes, but it takes them an hour and 20 minutes to get themselves recovered, to get back into the mix. And that's where that aerobic capacity and having the ability to recover and be resilient in that rehab time, so you can get back in. Because if you're eliminating an entire company after one tank, yeah, I mean, I don't know many departments other than New York City that has the ability to throw that many people at a structure fire that you can just lose an entire company for an hour.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. And what would you say is a really simple way to, let's just say for the cadet coming into a fire academy, to start building a little bit of strength and a little bit of aerobic capacity? Where does somebody who's that middle guy who doesn't necessarily need left side or right side, but they're in the middle, what can they do to just get a little bit better and more prepared for their upcoming fire academy?
Well,
guy or girl, either way.
Yeah. I'm really a fan of, again, CrossFit is, it's a polarizing methodology, but there is some benefit to doing those mixed modal events that combine some strength work and some cardiorespiratory demand at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I've always enjoyed almost a hybrid strongman type, workouts where you're doing a lot of carries. You might have an axial load, on your body, whether you're carrying a sandbag or you're carrying a slam ball, or, if you have the gym that has a yoke, you have some sort of axial load that you're having to move above your body weight at a high heart rate. But again, I would really make sure that the individual that's has as big of an aerobic base as possible, but has the ability to maintain that requisite strength they need too. So they need to make sure that they're buttoning that up. How good are they, under cardiovascular duress, and really biasing biasing that aerobic base, and then they can kind of start working. Because like I said, most of the work that we're doing is repetitive and submaximal. So getting in there and spending all your time, hitting 3 rep, 2 rep, 1 rep maxes in your squat, bench, and press is not always, not always what everybody needs. So just making sure that you're balanced. And again, like I said, that you can combine that submaximal work at that high heart rate with some of those mixed modal workouts that you may see in a CrossFit type gym or a functional fitness gym.
Perfect. So let's transition a little bit and start talking about Kaizen Groundworks and kind of what that offers. Let's just stick to the fire department for now. But what are you guys offering as far as programs and training for incumbent or current firefighters and tactical athletes?
Well, we have two different. We have the ability to consult for a department. If there's a department that wants to kind of pick, our brain as far as what we've found successful in the past, we have the ability to do that. As far as an individual, we have standalone programs that are 12 weeks long, and we have strength emphasis. So like we talked about, if we have somebody that has, maybe comes from a running background, and they have good conditioning and they're experienced in the conditioning side of things, we've got one that will bias the strength efforts that you may need for being academy ready. Also, we have ones that bias conditioning as well. So again, which I find most people come to me and they're strong, but that conditioning is lacking, and we have programs that will bias that conditioning and build you up to day one academy ready. And you made a comment earlier that I'd like to pull back to.
Sure.
It is not the response, in my opinion. It shouldn't be the responsibility of the fire academy to get people into shape.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people show up to the academy with thoughts of they're going to get me into shape and they're going to get me ready for the job. And that may be the case, but if you're spending bandwidth that you could be using to learn the new skills and get better at the skills that you're going to learn in the fire department, if you're using a lot of that bandwidth to get into shape and you're dying every day when we're working out, or you're dying at burns, or that takes away from the learning aspect of the academy. And I think being prepared and showing up day one ready to maintain that fitness that you've already built up is going to make you a better cadet moving to the street. So that's what we would provide. We're currently building a upper body. We have some athletes that lack upper body strength, and I think that there is a significant amount of needs for upper body strength for people, especially in the fire service.
Sure.
But pulling ceilings, pulling hose, dragging colleagues or mannequins, or when you get to the street, God forbid you have to drag a person.
Yeah.
That upper body strength is going to be necessary, and we're in the middle of developing a program that's upper body emphasis as well. We do also have private training, which is gets you more access to the coaching staff. You could weekly phone calls. We break down the individual athletes, so the programming isn't pre-made.
Okay.
You're going to get a good conversation about what your needs are, what your goals are, and the programming will be fluid to the journey that the athlete's taking. So a little more customized for the individual. So those are the three prong offense that we're taking to try to tackle this issue with people that are trying to get into that tactical field.
Yeah, I think what you were saying with people coming into the fire academy, and I don't think a lot of people know it, and I personally hold this belief that it's our responsibility to be in shape for the career we choose. Whether or not that is accurate, I don't know, but stepping into the fire service, stepping into fire academy isn't the day you start to get in shape for the job. And having a company or an opportunity to work with a group like Kaizen Groundworks, I think is something that future firefighters and even people in the academies should really, really start to look at, because if you're not doing something above and beyond what the academy is offering you, you're really not setting yourself up for success, I think. And you're just not taking responsibility for your own health and wellness. And that's what this podcast is all about, is being responsible for your own wellness, no matter what's happening around you. And
I don't think anybody's going to argue that point. It's just a matter of doing it. And if, a lot of times people will just, they don't understand, what the demands are. And this is where having a group of people that have experienced it and do know what the demands are can kind of help. Because, a lot of times you'll get folks that are, I'm going to go for a light jog 2 or 3 times a week. And, or occasionally I'm going to go in and do some buys and tries on Tuesday and Thursday. And then when they meet that first, that first burn where they're in full uniform and they're humping hose to the second floor, and they realize that probably wasn't quite the way to go, and we could have prepared just a little better,
sure.
With a little bit of insight. And truth be told, I certainly didn't have that insight, and there were a lot of times that I wish I had done things a little differently as well. So
sure.
I didn't have anybody to guide me through that process, and that's why I'm kind of trying to give back a little bit.
Yeah, I think the same goes for me. I didn't have the wellness insight. I didn't understand how mentally and emotionally challenging the career itself would be, and I kind of try to bring that to the table. A lot of interviews mostly, but what you're saying is we have to kind of research and understand the demands of this profession, and from department to department, they're definitely different, city to city, truck to truck. But at the end of the day, we're all experiencing the same lack of sleep, the exposure to trauma, the injuries, and the basic demands of fighting any fire, whether it's high rise, residential, are pretty similar across the country. Is that accurate?
I think so. And I think that we can probably paint with a broad brush on the needs, across all fire departments. The needs are probably pretty similar.
Yeah.
With exceptions. Where it becomes more nuanced is going to be the individual. That's where it's going to be more nuanced, and
sure.
what their physical regimen is like, and what they're doing. And it's little things. It's if you peel back some of the layers, specifically on firefighting, the second you get a tank on and start breathing air, not even doing anything, research says you're losing 15 to 20% of your VO2 max right off the top. Just working with the weight of the tank. And so another thing, your grip, a recent study came out, I believe, from University of Kentucky that says that you're losing 30% of your grip strength the second you put on firefighting gloves. And it's little things like that would, that would should steer people in a certain direction in their training, that jogging and bicep curls might not get you there under the heaviest of circumstances. So that's where education and having people kind of mentor you through the process is helpful.
Absolutely. So those two data points you just provided, the VO2 max and the grip strength, just real quick off the top of your head, how could we combat those?
Well, again, I'm increasing that aerobic capacity base for raising that ceiling of your VO2 as high as possible. Again, without losing, we can go out and run every day. We're not going to be able to pick our pillow off the ground at a certain point. That's a little bit of hyperbole, but trying to get that VO2 max up as high as you possibly can genetically gives you room when you start peeling away. And then, like I said, that 20% is not doing a heck of a lot of heavy work, per the research. The grip strength, I mean, that's just easy stuff. You just, pick up a heavy set of dumbbells or kettlebells and a couple times a week, incorporate walking around with them in your hands. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just understanding the needs and working on that. The zone 2 and the low intensity steady state is kind of, the pendulum is kind of swinging back in that direction. I think that little stuff that having folks that are kind of in the the exercise science side of things, recognizing that, paying attention to where your heart rate is when you're working out, little things like that. Are we working out at too high of a heart rate to get a benefit in cardiac output?
Sure.
That's something that I certainly didn't understand, when I was coming up. So having somebody say, hey, listen, let's keep your heart rate at, this specific range, because it's going to benefit you in this way, and it's going to increase your aerobic capacity this way, instead of going out and running 5 miles as fast as you humanly possibly can.
Sure.
And that being your workout for the day. Those small little nuances in the strength and conditioning world are things that need to get out to municipalities, so people understand. And a lot of times the city that I live in has a really good team of strength conditioning coaches that work with their fire department, and certainly not everybody has that. A lot of departments have the guy that looks the best in the t-shirt and pants.
Sure.
He or she is going to be the one that's going to be running the show. And they might not be as sophisticated as some other folks, or they may be. You never know. But just having that understanding, I think, is going to benefit people in the end.
Yeah. So I'd like to transition towards goals. We have all these people that may or may not need some stuff. How do you go about setting and determining where someone needs to start? Or do you test them? And then once you test them, how do you help them with goals?
I do. The good thing about this is I'm not training D1 college football players, and me, again, I talk like I have experienced this. I don't, but I would assume that, a lot of these guys, the D1 level athletes, they come in and they have lower margins of, they're just great at everything. Especially when you get into the professional athlete, they're just great at everything. They're super strong. They're super fast. They're there's negligible changes that you're going to make in their general physical preparedness. But I find in the public sector and the public safety space, usually it's pretty glaring. And like I said, when I was with the with the SWAT group, we'll come in and do an easy lift, and I'll just kind of look at, see what we're doing, what we're working with.
Yeah.
Are they deadlifting 2.5 times their body weight? That's, that right there tells me, hey, they're going to lift on their own without me, regardless of what I'm doing. So they've already got that covered. And again, you put them on the other side of the spectrum. Let's get on a rower, let's get on an erg, let's get on an echo bike and do some intervals, and have them hooked up to a chest strap and see how quickly that they get up to that 95-98% heart rate. Just bike 20 calories on the bike and you see them just spike up. It's pretty obvious what the deal is. Smaller people, they may need to really work on that requisite strength just because, just in general, they don't have the body mass to be super strong people. So you might have to focus on that. So just general testing, it's really not rocket science.
Okay.
And you can kind of look at them and see what to tweak. As far as goals go, my biggest goal is to get my athletes to understand why. Like, I want them to understand the why. It's like, why are you making me do 30 minutes of steady state at 145 beats per minute to 150 beats per minute on a heart rate, for example? I just like them to understand why. And the goals will be pretty standard for them. It's like, I want to be a productive member of my fire department or SWAT team or, law enforcement. And, once we solidify those goals and I get them to understand what the roadmap is going to be to get there, we train accordingly. That's going to be one of our main mantras is solidify your goals. Make sure you understand exactly what they are. And then we're going to train accordingly. We're not, working out for beach bod is going to be different than working out for day one of a fire academy. So you got to just make sure that you're training for the appropriate goals that you've set for yourself.
So that brings me to a pretty interesting thought I've had before, and I think I've discussed with other people in the past. But when it comes to beach bod versus performance and output capability, how much would you say body fat percentage plays a role? Because I know in my head, when I was growing up, ripped, lean, and jacked was high performance. But coming to find out that high performance at this level isn't necessarily sustainable at 2 or 3 or 4 body fat percentage, right?
No, because that's all done in the kitchen, as you know. That's a nutritional issue, and you're just not going to have the energy. In the tactical space, there's a significant amount of, anaerobic, situations that carbohydrates are going to be used. And I mean, if you're restricting your carbohydrates to get down to 2 or 3% body fat to have the beach bod, it's just not practical. And we are, the tactical workspace is going to be, a performance issue, not an aesthetic issue. Now, don't get me wrong. I think if you work out and you try to be a generalist, I think that your aesthetics are gonna come. Are you gonna win a bodybuilding contest? I would probably say there's some holes in your game as a tactical athlete. If you're able to win a bodybuilding, you're probably gonna you're gonna gas out pretty quickly. But
you're probably prioritizing the wrong thing.
I think so, and again, that's where solidifying a person's goals. And when I get a cohort of athletes that come in, I just make sure, hey, listen, this is what we're training for,
right?
the rest of it's just going to kind of, if we get some other benefits, that's great, but we're training for this specific goal. So, if it means that you might have to put on 10 pounds or take off 20, then so be it. But the goal is going to be what we're training for.
Awesome. So speaking of why did you come up with Kaizen Groundworks?
Well, I feel like I have something to offer. One, I enjoy it, to be honest with you. And, full disclosure, the last two cohorts of athletes that I've worked with, they've been local and it's been pro bono. So I donate 2 hours out of the day, 4 days out of the week. I don't take a dime for, getting these folks through. I enjoy it. So if I can find a way to spend my time that I enjoy that much that I would do it for free, then I'm on to something. Sure. I think that I have enough experience. I think that I have enough education that I can, make a difference to, a large number of people trying to get into this field. The military side of things is pretty saturated, I think.
Yeah.
There's plenty of guys and gals that are training folks to get into the military. I don't think that there are a lot of folks that have experience in public safety and are, trying to do tactical athlete preparation at the same time. I think that there are some, but there's not as many as there are in the military side of things. So I wanted to stay in this environment because I enjoy this cohort of people. Mm-hmm. I enjoy working with this cohort of people as opposed to athletes. I don't really have any interest in training,
sure,
sports specific athletes. And it's interesting to me. It's stuff that I enjoy reading about it. I enjoy having conversations like we're having conversation right now.
Yeah.
This is fun for me to talk about. So, and I think that I can provide a service, and I have been, and that service is growing exponentially with each passing week, and that's enjoyable to me. And if I'm not going to be actively, in the public safety, actively working, I'd certainly want to be working in the periphery of it.
Well, that's very commendable, and I can really relate to that. So thank you for what you're doing. Where can we find Kaizen Groundworks? Do you have social media handles, website, perhaps?
I do. We're on Instagram, as I think it's where we spend most of our time. We're on Instagram, Facebook. KaizenGroundworks.com is our website that folks can pursue training or consulting. Also, me personally, I'm on LinkedIn as well, okay, which kind of gives a good rundown of my my practical experience and my educational resume for anybody that's curious and feels like I need to be vetted. They can get a good idea there of where we are. But that's where we're operating, and we're not hard to find. Good.
Well, everybody listening, you can take my word for it. Lee is a straight shooter. He's in good shape, and he's a hell of a leader. So if you are looking for any guidance when it comes to getting into the tactical realm, Kaizen Groundworks is definitely a great way to start your career. One more thing for you, Lee. If you had any priority traffic podcast for our audience, what would it be?
Trust the process. Everything is a process, right? You have to understand what that process is going to be. Nothing, if we talked about solidifying a goal, make sure you understand the process that goes into accomplishing that goal and trust it. Because some days are not going to be fun. Some days are going to be boring. Some days right, you just have to do stuff because that's how your body needs to adapt. You might end up doing things for the process that you don't enjoy.
Sure.
You just have to trust it and then recognize that at the end of that process, there's going to be a goal. So patience and trust of that process is going to be huge.
Excellent. Well, Lee, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. it really sounds like a lot of the newer people coming into the tactical realm really need to understand the demands of whatever career they're getting in. And I think that's a good place to start. That way they can show up prepared and ready to go. And Kaizen Groundworks sounds, and from my experience with checking out the website and knowing you, it is a great place to start. If you guys have any questions, get a hold of Lee, KaizenGroundworks.com, I think.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Lee, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making time for me and the audience to come on and chat about Kaizen and share your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Chris, I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. All right, everybody. This is Chris with Party Traffic Podcast signing off. Have a great day.
As all great things do, this episode of Party Traffic Podcast has come to an end. And from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to express my gratitude for your time and attention. Your support and feedback help the show to continually improve our content and to bring you the best possible experience. If you found value in today's discussion and it has challenged your current practices, we encourage you to share this episode with your colleagues and friends. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Party Traffic Podcast on our various channels to stay up to date with our latest of shows. At Party Traffic, we strongly believe that prioritizing wellness is the foundation of long-term high performance. By taking care of ourselves both physically and mentally, we can unlock our full potential and achieve greatness. We are honored to be a part of your journey towards self-mastery and grateful for you being here with us today. Remember, together we can prioritize wellness and realize the performance we deserve. Thank you for listening to Party Traffic Podcast, and until next time, stay safe and stay committed to your well-being.